Let's talk about the components of BOSH and how we can deploy them. The first thing you should know is that BOSH is just a VM at the end of the day, with services that run inside of it. This black line is just a VM, and all those little white boxes inside are services. So how do we get those services? Right? Well, we use something called the BOSH CLI, and specifically, we use something called BOSH init. Now, BOSH init was not included in the version 1 BOSH CLI, but in the version 2, it is. So I would recommend downloading the version 2 CLI. Okay, but these are both CLIs. Whenever you deploy BOSH, you use BOSH init, and whenever you manage something that you're using BOSH or you want to talk with BOSH, you use the BOSH CLI. And when you use the CLI, when you do anything with BOSH, you use the CLI to talk to the director. Now, the director is sort of the orchestrator of the whole show. So he is the one that is figuring out how to deploy VMs, managing your services, managing those, everything pretty much. And so the director does have an API, but I wouldn't recommend utilizing it because it's always changing versus the CLI, which is guaranteed to work at certain versionings, right? So let's take a look at how we deploy services with BOSH. Well, the first thing that we do is we need an OS, right? So when we go ahead and we deploy a service, we need to run it on a VM, and therefore that VM needs to have an OS. Well, what do we do with that OS, right? Where do we get it? Well, we get the OS from the website bosh.io. There's a bunch of OSs there. They're all made for vSphere, whatever IaaS you're on, because remember, BOSH can run on any IaaS. So we take that, we download it, and then we upload it to our director, and our director stores it right here in the blob store. Okay, so it stores the OS in the blob store there, and we'll then go ahead and use that stem cell, also known as an OS, to create VMs in the future. So now say, all right, we know we've got the OS, now we want to deploy some service, right? It could be somebody else's service, such as RabbitMQ or something like that, or it could be your own service. Well, the first thing is that you're going to go ahead and you're going to upload your code to the director. And the director is then going to go ahead and spin up a VM called the compilation VM on your IaaS, okay? And the way it's going to do that is through something called the CPI, right here, CPI. And the CPI stands for Cloud Provider Interface. And that interface allows us to talk to any IaaS, right? So in the case of vSphere, it would be vCenter. In the case of Amazon, it would be Amazon, the web management client, right? So, so we would get this VM, and then what we would do is we'd take that source code, we would upload it to the VM, and then we would compile it, right? We put it into a binary or whatever we need to run on that VM when we go to deploy the service. And then where does the compiled code get stored? Well, it gets stored on the blob store. The thing that I did skip over is that the Postgres DB here is also being utilized to manage versions. So your stem cell has a version, your source code has a version, right? So both of those versions are getting stored here in the Postgres database. So now we've got our stem cell, or our OS, ready to go. We've got our product or a service or the code, however you want to look at it. We've got that ready to go. So now what we do is we deploy a VM. Remember, BOSH goes ahead and uses the CPI to deploy a VM, and we get a VM. So we got a VM right up here. We could call this deployment A, or we could also, which you should think of that as service A. Service A. And so we've got service A up there, and it's using that stem cell, right, that OS. And the only thing that's on that OS besides your code is this agent. Okay, so the agent is how BOSH communicates with VMs. So BOSH utilizes a pub/sub messaging system, the NATs right here, okay, to talk to the VM. And so it's just a simple pub/sub messaging system. And it also uses the agent, right? And so the agent reports the health of the VM, if it's alive, if the services, because remember we're running services on that VM, what's the status of those? And so before we can even get to that though, how do we get the base configuration onto that VM? How do we bootstrap that VM? Well, we use the registry. So this guy right here is made to bootstrap the VM. So it gives it its IP and other things, right? So, but once it's bootstrapped, the registry is out of the game. We now switch over to using the NATs to communicate with the VM. So then, the only other piece that we're missing here is this health monitor, right? What is the health monitor? Well, the health monitor is exactly that. It monitors the health of the VM, right? So the NATs goes out and says, hey, VM, how you doing? How you doing? The agent responds back saying, I'm doing good. So then we report back to the health monitor, he's doing good. And the director is always polling that health monitor, and he says, oh, no, it's fine. But once that agent stops responding, or a process on that VM stops responding, that health monitor will mark it as a bad process or bad VM, and the director will either spin up a new VM if it's a bad VM, or it will tell the NATs, hey, NATs, go ahead to this VM, and I want you to spin up, restart that service, right? And the agent would go ahead and restart the service. So this is a basic overview of BOSH and the capabilities of it. There are other components such as Power DNS and other things, but this should get you rolling. Stay tuned for more videos.